Hello, and welcome to the podcast. It is another episode of Love Well, and I hope that you are doing great this week. So it's been Sunday on a Monday. Now it's Sunday on a Tuesday. Yesterday was a full day of hosting podcast interview, being on another person's podcast, and so things kind of got bumped to today. And so we're gonna continue on here and gonna roll through this series that we're doing from that are kind of our Sunday series is Beyond Sunday School. So looking at trying to look at the scriptures as an adult, as a grown up. How do you move past kind of felt bored Sunday school kind of ways of thinking about the Bible, or dealing with the stories of the Bible. And so this week we are going to start diving into the scriptures a little bit. We're going to look at one particular story, and then we will, we're going to keep kind of moving on some of these things. We may go back to looking at some bigger questions about how do we handle the Bible as well, and hoping to have some guests on to talk about some of those things. But thought it would be good to maybe take a look at one of the famous stories and dive in a little bit and kind of see, how do we handle a famous story of the Bible, and how do we look at it in a more mature way, beyond the felt board, beyond Veggie Tales. And this is a hard question. Because, on the one hand, we want to approach things with a simple faith, with a childlike faith, that kind of thing. But on the other hand, if we never mature in our understanding of the scriptures, and if we never move beyond the way that we understand the Bible, kind of from a Sunday school approach or Sunday school perspective, then boy, we are in a world of hurt, right? So, so how do we do this? And where are we going to go with this? Let me pray, and we will dive in. Heavenly Father, thanks for this morning. Pray that you would give us some understanding, help us to get to know you a little bit better, and not just learn more stuff. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So we're going to start at the beginning, at the very top of things, right? Genesis chapter 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. This is how the Bible opens. This is the opening, the opening verses of the story of Scripture. So what do we have? What do we have here? What are we looking at? So remember, we talked about, as we dive into the Scriptures, as we seek to understand them, what we want to do is we need to understand when, where, who, all this kind of context, right? And so starting off in the book of Genesis is no different. What was happening? Why was this written? When was this written? Well, a lot of, I guess more on the conservative side of things, conservative scholars would say that the first 5 books of the Bible were written by Moses, and they were penned during the wandering in the wilderness. Now, on the other side of things, on the more progressive side, the argument is that they were written much later. They were written during the exile, and they were written by, they're kind of stitched together, 4 different sources from 4 different time periods, and you know, and you can research that on your own if you want to know more about maybe who to look at, or kind of how to dive into some of those questions. Hit me up on a private message. You can send me a message on Twitter. Just DM me. My DMs are open, as the kids say. You can connect with me on Twitter at Daniel M. Rose. But for us, let's hold to the more conservative approach here, that Moses was indeed the author, and that he wrote these first 5 books of the Bible during that time in the wilderness. So why? I think the first question that comes to mind as I open up the text of Genesis is why. Why did Moses write this? Why do we have a creation story? What is the purpose of it? Well, let's think about this for a minute. Moses and the people of God, the Israelites, they are wandering in the wilderness. They have left Egypt. They have entered into a vacuum of society. They are trying to build a whole new culture, a whole new community. They're trying to get their bearings, and they are a tribe that is wandering, right? They are a nomadic people. They do not have a homeland. There is no place. They have no place to call their home, right? We take great pride. Many of us take great pride in saying, I am from Michigan. I am from the United States of America. I am from England. I am from Ireland. I am from the Congo. I am from New Zealand. Pick it. Many of us have a pride of place. Many of us are able to identify where we come from and where our roots are. And this is home. This is my neighborhood. These folks didn't have that. This is a whole community of people wandering, waiting for God to bring them to where? Waiting for God to bring them to the promised land. Now, throughout the book of Genesis, we see the promise, right? We see the story of a promised land begin to take form through God's covenantal working. But that story has to have a beginning. And for ancient people, the beginning of a story started with creation narrative. It started with that question of, where did we come from and how did we get here? Another way of looking at it is, trying to answer the question, what is wrong with you people? Because as you spend time in the story of Scripture, especially as you spend time in the story of Genesis and Exodus, the people of God are messy. They're imperfect. They have all kinds of problems and issues, and they are just not. They're not these great models of perfection, right? And so we need to answer. They needed answers. Why are we the way we are? How did we get here? How did we find ourselves wandering through the desert? And how do we know? And I think the second question is, how do we know that there is a promised land, that there really is a place for us that we can call home, that we can say, this is our land. This is our place. Because you have to understand, in ancient time, identity was deeply, deeply rooted in place. And so this is, not having a place was problematic. And so now here they are. They're wandering, they're walking through the desert, they're going from place to place that's not their place. And the question is how do we know for sure? How do we know for sure that there will be a time when we can put roots down, where we can build cities, where we can say, this is our home? So there's kind of those two questions. How did we get to where we are? Why are we the way we are? And how do we know that there's a promised land? How do we know that there is some place for us to call home? And I think the book of Genesis begins to answer those questions. And it starts with this creation story. It starts with Genesis 1 through 3. Now, I can't sit here and read. I could, but I'm not going to read everything in Genesis 1 through 3. One, because it would take a while. It'd take a little bit. And you guys would probably stop listening to the podcast or turn off this video pretty quick. But I want to highlight some things that I think give us some of the insights. First, you have this acknowledgement, right? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So there's this acknowledgement that there is a God. There is a divine being, something outside of themselves that has creative power, that has a creative force, that is in a sense in control, right? It says the earth was formless and empty, darkness was over the surface of the deep. The Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. This is this picture of chaos, of this dark, formless void that was empty. It was just chaos. And chaos is scary. Now, again, consider where we're at. Consider again the people for whom this was written. This is a people who are wandering in a desert, who have no place. Chaos is all around them. Every turn seemed to be more and more chaotic. Fear was probably the emotion du jour. Fear was everywhere. They have no walls. They have no city. They have no way to really protect themselves from anybody. More established people could come in and wipe them out. They didn't really have an army. They didn't have all the things that in their time a people needed to have to protect themselves. So it was hard for them. It was scary, and it probably felt chaotic, because here they'd find a place and they'd settle for a little bit, and then all of a sudden they'd have to pack up and move again. And what we know is that moving, at least in modern times, moving is one of the most stressful things that you can do in your life. Now consider constantly being on the move, constantly going from place to place, and never being able to really settle in, and never really being able to rest. Man, fear, worry, stress just would have been weighing down on them. And so Moses sits down and writes this creation narrative. He writes this story of where they're coming from. And in chapter 1, what he's trying to do is he is really trying to lay out for them that, this world that seems chaotic and scary and hard, no, there is order to it. And this order was laid down by a creator God, by a divine one who is outside of ourselves, who has creative force, creative power to bring order to a chaotic, formless, scary place. And that's Genesis 1. I mean, Genesis 1 it's like this picture of bringing order out of chaos, right? It's just bringing order out of chaos. It's saying, here was this, and it was good. Here was this, and it was good. We see all these things starting. You start seeing, with the third day, that God saw that it was good. This world that they find themselves in, wandering around and feeling a sense of fear and chaos and worry and stress. And yet Moses writes this story and says, it was good. This world you find yourself in, it's overseen by a creator God who says the world is good. Imagine hearing that. And here you are wandering under a weight of fear and stress and worry and concern. And yet, what do we hear over and over again in this original story, in this creation account? That it was good. That it was good. Now, the story is interesting here because it's also it's a little bit different from some of the other creation narratives from that time. A lot of you can do a little bit of research. You can hit up the Google machine or the DuckDuckGo machine and do some research on creation myths from the ancient Near East. And what you find is a lot of those stories are violent, chaotic. We don't have that here. No, we have a development. We have an understanding of a God, a creator God who creates out of goodness, who creates something good, something orderly, something beautiful. We don't have a creator God that is creating out of violence for violence, leading to more violence. This is a different kind of story. It's a story going from chaos to order, not trying to give a reason for why there is chaos. It's basically kind of saying the world looks a little bit chaotic, but guess what? There is order. There is something good here. There is beauty here that we need to be aware of, and we need to see, and we need to know what's happening. We can trust in the reality that there is a divine creator God who is bringing order out of chaos. And so for a people wandering in the wilderness, for a people kind of going, oof, what's happening? What's happening to us? Why are we out here? Why are we wandering around? This is chaos. To hear that there was order and that this order is brought about by a good God, a good creative God. That would have been remarkable. But the other thing that you see in Genesis chapter 1, starting in verse 27, right? It says, so God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them. and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves on the ground." Then God said, "I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food. And to all the beasts of the earth, and all the birds in the sky, and all the creatures that move along the ground, everything that has the breath of life in it, I give every green plant for food." And it was so. God saw all that he made, and it was very good. And there was evening and there was morning, the sixth day. Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. By the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. You see, in this story, in this picture, right? You see that God, the Creator God, the Divine One, says to the ones made in his image, to mankind, to people, says, "Hey, you're blessed. You're blessed. You are going to be happy. And hey, here's the other thing. I've given you all of this. I've given you all these things, right? And it is very good. It's very good. Be fruitful, multiply, tend and care for this world, right? You have responsibility over this world. Make something of it. And I'm giving you all the food that you need. I'm providing for you." So again, understand what is happening here. Moses is leading a people who have left Egypt, who are now walking around in a vast vacuum of culture, of a society. They're trying to build something new. And so what does Moses do? Well, Moses says, "Hey, here's the divine Creator God, the good one who's bringing order out of chaos. Oh, and you people, all of us, we are created in the image of this divine one, this Creator God, this God who's bringing order out of chaos. And because you are created in his image, guess what you're able to do? You have the capacity to create as well. You have the capacity to bring order out of chaos. You have the capacity to do these godlike things. That is a remarkable thing to tell a people who are trying to build a brand new society, who are trying to build something from nothing. Because what did God do? God created all things from nothing. He brought complete order out of chaos. And here, because you are created in his image, you have the ability to do the same thing. We, all of us together, we can bring order out of chaos. We can build this new thing. We can build this new society. The capacity of bringing something out of nothing exists and dwells within us because we are created in God's image. That's really the point. This is the point of Genesis chapter 1. Being written to a people in a societal vacuum. Right? They need to understand who they are. And Moses is saying who you are. You are image bearers who can bring order out of chaos. You can create. You can do all these amazing things. This is such a remarkable statement, such a remarkable vision for what humanity is, for what the people of God could become. Right? We're not going to get, you know what? We're not going to get to 2 and 3. We're going to stop here because I don't want to walk away from this too quickly. We're not in any rush. We'll come back to Genesis 2 and 3 next week. We share some things in common with with the Israelites who are wandering around the desert, right? Don't we live in a chaotic time? Don't we live in a time where it feels like there's no order, where it feels like we are unrooted, where it feels like we don't seem to be able to find our footing on anything? Don't we live in a time where it seems like fear and stress and chaos are around every single corner? Maybe we need this reminder just as much as those people did, right? The reminder that we are created in the image of God. The reminder that each of us has the capacity to bring order from chaos. Each of us has capacity to create beautiful things, to create good. And the problem comes is when we forget that, when we forget the reality that we can create good in this world. This is who we are as human beings. We are image bearers of the good creator God who brought order out of chaos. So as we begin looking around at this world, as we begin looking around at, or thinking about the future in a world where there's a pandemic that is spreading everywhere, in a world that it seems like the fabric of our society is being pulled apart through hatred, through anger and strife. We need to look inside a little bit, and we need to be reminded of who we are. We are image bearers of the Creator God that brings order out of chaos. My friends, the capacity to do that is within each of us. Imagine if we could get together and we start working together to bring order out of chaos, of recognizing the image of God in one another. We can create meaning. We can create good and beautiful things in this world. Why? Because we are image bearers. Because we bear the image of the Creator God. The Creator God that brought good. The Creator God that brought order out of chaos. So do you see how if you slow down just a little bit and you do just a little bit of work at thinking about the context of the stories of the Bible, how you're able to move from Veggie Tales and felt boards to something deeper, right? So often we read Genesis chapter 1, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. And so many of us we read this and go, okay, God made things. He made the world, and it ends there. We don't go deeper. We don't go to that place where we ask why. Why is this story here? Why do we need to know this? And so we do that little bit of extra work, and we're able to move past the felt board. We're able to move past Veggie Tales. We're able to move past the questions about, is Genesis 1 literal 24-hour, 7-day week? Man, that is not the question. That is not the issue that is being addressed here, right? The issue that is being addressed here is the Creator God moving from chaos to order. Humanity being created in His image to then also be those who create and build and bring order out of chaos. This is the point. But we miss the point if we don't do that little bit of extra work. And as grown-ups, moving beyond Sunday school, let's do a little bit of the extra work. So I'd love to engage with you more, would love to talk with you more. If you want to continue this conversation, you can hit me up on Twitter at Daniel M. Rose. Let's talk. As always, the easiest way to keep up with what I am writing, recording, is by subscribing to Love Well at danielemrose.com. And it's that way everything just gets dumped right into your inbox. And the video archive of this message will be it can be found at youtube.com/DanielRose. So make sure that you subscribe there as well. And next week we'll look at we'll probably look at Genesis 2. And I don't know if we'll get into Genesis 3 or not, but we'll see. So until next time, this is the Podpastor saying, "Love well, my friends."